Tabletop Game Expo 2019. That's the first time we ran it. And I couldn't have done it without a team. I couldn't have done it without that experience of running flea markets and realizing the interest that people have in doing these things and going to these events. So I've talked about the flea markets in previous videos. This one is about the Tabletop Game Expo. Okay, where do you start? You need a venue. So start with getting a venue and booking a time. That in combination, of course, with your crew, your organizing team. And I'll get into that in a bit, but I'll start by looking at the venue. And so I had done these flea markets. I had looked for venues that could take a few hundred people. The one we had for Spelloppis 2018, which was the biggest one that got so amazing, was 300 people max. There were 2 rooms, 150 per room. And what I found when I started investigating what venues to use is that 300 to 500, that's a general size for a venue, which is too small for me. I was looking for something for a few thousand visitors, like 1, 2 maybe. And what I found was that there's no in between. The step from a few hundred, 300 to 500, to the next step is not like a few hundred more, a few thousand. It's like 5,000 plus. When you take that step, you just get these giant, really, really big venues. Unless, there's always something, right? And I was looking, there were some venues that were catering to like wedding parties, but a lot of them were outside of town, quite far away, and that's not what I was looking for. So I had to make a choice. Do I take the leap and go to this big area and really go for it? Or do I just stop? Or, can I find another way? So I had to make a decision, and I decided to go that one step further. So I looked and I decided on a venue, which is Solnahallen. And it's actually a sports arena with 2 big halls. And they could fit like 5,000 plus people. So it's quite big, actually. And I didn't need that. But I also felt that there's no other way to do this, and I was able to get a good price and I was able to build a good relationship with them. So I thought, let's do it. Let's do it. And I also had to set a plan in my mind, right, that I might, I'm not going to go plus the first year. I'm probably going to go, in the reds and not go plus the first year budget wise. And then break even the second year and make some money the third year, hopefully enough to bring in the money that I lost the first year. So that was my plan. I knew that going in. I figured, of course, I wanted to be a giant success the first year, but you have to plan for reality and you have to have backup plans. Otherwise, if you fail, which you do, like you're never gonna succeed every time. You don't have that space to learn from it and do it again. So I knew that coming in, and I worked with that venue and it turned out really well. Really happy to work with them. So I had the venue. Looking for dates is going to be the second one. And there's it's almost like a science on how to choose a date. You want to consider your competition. On the other hand, there's so many people in the world, in your country, in your city, that everyone's not going to go to your competition anyway. But you might want to look at other cities too, because if you're niching towards specific type of geeks, for example, they might all be traveling somewhere else to another city for another event going on at the same time. So I have to really look at what's going on and make some conscious choices. We chose to not take one of those special weekends. We chose a weekend that's just like any other weekend. It's not Easter, it's not Kristi Himmelfärd, there's nothing like that going on. And we chose it in the spring because there's a lot of expos and fairs going on in the autumn. So we wanted to be like, okay, we'll be on the other side of the year. Less competition that way. A regular weekend, 2 days, just for a weekend. That's what we chose. And it turned out really well. And I think we're going to continue with that. As you grow your event and as this one grows as well, I might change this. If you do it on one of the bigger weekends like Easter, then it's a lot easier for people to travel if you want people to come from lots of different places. But then again, you'll be competing with a lot of other things going on as well. So we'll see where it ends up. So I had the venue, I had the date, and building that relationship with the venue people, the ones who owns the venue and that we were renting from, was very valuable for me. And I really recommend cultivating that relationship. I went in with an attitude that they are the experts. They've been running events so much. I've only done it a few times, and I have great ideas, and I'm not devaluing myself and my ideas, but I come in with big ears and listen to what they have to say and ask for their input. So I tell them my ideas and want to hear what they think. And of course, that's not going to work unless the other party understands the value of what you're doing. And I'm lucky enough to have met some people that understand that this, our geekdom, is amazing, and they understand the value that we can bring. So we built that relationship. There's a lot of listening, and I think I have gotten more out of that relationship than many of the other event managers that they work with, because I came in with that attitude of listening and wanting their feedback and considering them the experts on anything venue related and their previous experience with events, whereas I come in with the expert from running the events I've done and this geek niche of people and style of events. Okay, so venue, date, great. What's next? Well, there's so much to do, and I'm not going to get into all the details in this video, but I do want to talk a little bit about your organizers, the crew, your team, the people who are going to do this with you. And I have had some amazing people on my team. A lot of them came from previous events that I had run through the nonprofit organization, the game flea markets, for example. But I also got some other people on board randomly. And I know you might be wondering, like, how does that happen? How do you find the people? And I think there's probably some strategies, but for me, in my experience, it's about showing people what you're about. Like, I was talking to colleagues at work. I was telling them about these things and showing my passion and excitement. And suddenly I find out one of my colleagues is interested and this is fun, and her wife is interested in this too. And suddenly have two people on board as well who want to help out. And they turn out to be such great assets in addition to being wonderful friends. I also had a person contact me on Facebook randomly. And he came from Brazil, and he had done role-playing events in Brazil, like really cool ones, and he had this experience of running these events. But he actually contacted me because he is a game designer, and he was like, I want to sell my games at your event. How does this work? We started talking, and suddenly he's on the team and he's helping me organize this, and I'm so happy to have him on. And actually what I found is I have had a team with people from, so I'm in Sweden, Europe. I had people from New Zealand, from Brazil, from America, and from different places in Europe, as well as mostly from Sweden. And it was so much fun because we had all these different cultures, and we were feeding off each other because we all had this one thing in common, which was this passion for all kinds of different geeky things. And it was a lot of fun. We met once a month to begin with, all of us, and then I would check in with certain people at certain times. And then the closer we came to the event, we would meet every week. And I would always feed them. At the beginning, I would buy, pizza or whatever. And then with time, I realized that's going to cost me a lot of money because there were like 10 to 12 people every time we met. And we met in my apartment. So at one time, I just made a batch of pea soup, classic Swedish, which you eat with hard bread with cheese on it and some mustard. And they loved it. It was like a Swedish culture experience just because they've made it. And it's so cheap to make, by the way. So they were really happy, and they understood that we can't buy food all the time, or we could, but that would be very expensive. And they were just happy to have the consideration. Like, I would, feed your people. They just become so happy, and that's part of the whole thing. Another big thing, and I'm really happy I was telling you about the wife couple who came on, is the value of T-shirts and hoodies. Like, you wouldn't realize, but they build so much morale in your team. And I'll show you the hoodies that we got. So they're just black hoodies, and we have our brand mascot on here on the front, and I'm showing you the back. So now you've seen the hoodies that we wear and we have at Tabletop Game Expo. There was a lot of work to get to that point because we wanted a mascot, we wanted an icon from Tabletop Game Expo. And it started out with a woman called Emma. She'd been doodling and drawing, and she drew Dice Man, as we call him. And then another teammate, Katie, she took on Emma's drawings and started working with an artist through Fiverr.com. And that went through some iterations, and I was in there as well and helping. And by the end, we had Dice Man, our icon. And then we started, printing these t-shirts. And I'm happy because I didn't realize the value of doing this. And Katie was the one who pressed me, and she had experience from this from America, where she'd come from, and she'd worked previously in these types of events. So she pushed me, we got the t-shirts, we got the hoodies, and as soon as people put them on, even just seeing, we had the whole thing, we were opening the boxes and everyone was getting their sizes and just putting them on and taking pictures, and people felt ownership, I think, identity, community together. We're part of the same team, and just a great sense of morale throughout the team by having these t-shirts. Incredibly valuable. I really recommend doing that, and doing it early on, because then people will keep wearing them. Every time they wear them, they get these positive feelings. It's really cool. Okay, so we have the team. Everyone's working with different responsibilities. I'm jumping in, I'm helping as much as I can. I'm not going to get into more details around that. Okay, so we're planning different things. It's coming closer. The event itself, Tabletop Game Expo, has two parts. So we have the trade show with the stage, which is a typical expo, right? And it's quite common in America, I think. You have all of these different vendors setting up publishers, stores, and they have different spaces like this. Stage with all that going on, so a proper trade show. The other area is an area we had for gaming, for activities, for anything where our guests could come in and sit down and play or stand up or whatever that was. But an area where they can engage and do things as compared to walking around and see things or listen to if it was the stage. And I felt very passionate about that, and it's still a very big part of what Tabletop Game Expo is, to have both the trade show and the stage area, as well as an activities area where people can sit down and engage and do things, which was gonna be any game related. So we had that, we were planning for that. I was very much involved in the trade show part, and I had gotten some drawings from the venue, this is the space, and I was planning out everything. And then I don't know if I got the wrong drawing or if I printed it in the wrong size, but the scale of what I was calculating was wrong. It was this, it made it look like it was smaller than it was. So 3 months before the event, I stopped looking for vendors to exhibitors for the trade show, because I thought we were full. We were not. And I figured that out way too late, a month prior, month and a half maybe, and I had to scramble to try and find other vendors to fill the space because there was so much space. It was crazy and such a stupid mistake, you'd think. And I can say that, I can say stupid, but I shouldn't, because shit happens, right? You learn from the mistakes, and that's what I did. And now I know a good tip for everyone else: go to the venue with a measuring tape, a long one, and measure some crucial, you don't have to measure everything, but measure at least some of the crucial length, just so you know that you're not off on whatever drawing you're working from. So it's the day before the event, and we're there from early morning setting up tables, because our role that day is going to be directing other people. If I walk around and actually do part of the work, which I want to do, right? You want to be engaged in everything. Then whenever someone else is doing something and they need your help, if you're not at a certain place, like an info booth type thing, then everything's halted. So you need to be in one space and direct people, or you need to have someone who's doing that for you. So we set up an info booth. We had people coming in who were setting up the trade show walls, because of course this is a sports arena. They don't have those walls anywhere near, so we had to get people in to set that up. We had furniture coming in, which we were in charge of to set that out, like where we wanted it, tables and chairs. And also for each of the exhibitors, they had also ordered specific furniture for their specific exhibit, like their little area. So they also were delivered, and we had to take care of that and make sure that it was all there. But then mostly that was just between the furniture rental place and the specific exhibitors. So it was really nice to work with a professional like exhibit vendor furniture rental place, because they handle a lot of that for me. Just so nice. But we still had ordered lots of tables and chairs just for our things, like for chairs for the stage, lots of tables and chairs for all of the activities that were going on, and handling all of that and setting all of that up. Some of the stores also came the night before to start setting up, but a lot of them actually came the morning of. So the day of, the stores came in and they started setting up their booths. Other things we did the day before was, of course, we had the volunteers come in to show them everything, to talk to them, to train them. We had certain volunteers who had to, take money from people when they came in through the door. And so we had to train them. We had to set all of that up. What else? Signage. You have no idea how much time signage takes. You have to set up signs everywhere because people can't find anything. They've never been there before. So you have to put up bathrooms that way and exit that way, and have to make that really clear for everyone. And also in the sense of crowd control. Like you want people to be able to walk through. You want to plan how they walk through things so that there's no collision, which causes stops with people. We're setting up the wardrobe and all kinds of things. And the day of, looking out through that window and seeing that line going out for people waiting to get in, oh, what a sense of excitement and joy. And we opened up the doors and people came in, and they had bought their tickets online before, they bought some at the door. They came in and they went through, they looked at the trade show, and we had some really good exhibitors. We had Asmodee, the biggest board game publisher in Europe, at least, if not the world. We had Lautapellit, which is the second biggest one, at least in the Scandinavian countries. It's Finnish. Lautapellit, I think they're called Spilbret in Danish. We had a bunch of board game stores, so they were there and they were selling their games and whatever else they had to sell. We had smaller publishers, individual companies or smaller ones that were just there showing their game or their set of games. We had some other things like nerdy jewelry. Like that's something I love because I have a hard time finding nerdy jewelry, and I just love showing my identity. So that was great. We could get some people like that in there as well. And just lots of fun things. The stage was set up, and we had some really great speakers come up and do presentations, and we had panels and talks, and that was a really big draw, I think, for people to come. Not huge. We didn't have any huge names because we weren't that big yet. But it was still really good, like really good. And we had activities in the other halls. So we had a game bar or game library, if you may, where people could come up, and then our volunteers, or actually there was a club who ran that, their volunteers would help find a game from the library to whoever came up, and also help connect people. Like, okay, so you came to the bar to find a game to play and find some people to play it with, and they would help and set that up, and you could sit and play some games. We also had like RPG sessions, role-playing, which were one-offs that they could sign up for prior to the event, but also drop-in sessions you could drop into during the event. And we had all of these activities actually run by separate clubs and nonprofit organizations from Stockholm. And that was by design. We didn't want to have to organize everything. That was never part of my plan because that's way too much. So having these other clubs come in and do their thing and share their passion and find new members, that's just brilliant, I think, because you create that relationship. You help them and they help you, and we have this amazing event. We had a few tournaments as well. At the time we did a little bit of Keyforge, which was very hot to do, and some other things, but not a lot. We did hunker down way more for 2020 Tabletop Game Expo, and I'll talk more about what happened around all of that in the next video. So not so many tournaments in 2019. But we had all of these things. There was a lot of space actually not being utilized. So there was some emptiness, which is a bit sad, of course. And some of the exhibitors, they didn't get enough people coming and buying their things, which of course ain't so good either. However, the feedback that we got from our vendors, our exhibitors, was really good. They really wanted this to continue. They realized, and they were giving me feedback, that we need more people, like it needs to grow. But they were also saying, like, let's do it again. Let's grow this together. We want to be here. We want this to happen. Thank you. Please keep going. And then gave us tips on how to make it better. So that was really encouraging. And after a full weekend of doing all these things, the feeling that we had was, you know, we were content and happy. And I really looking forward to doing it again. And we started all these plannings to do it again for next year. And what else is there to say? You know, send out the survey after, get more feedback from everyone. Check in with all of your vendors, all of your relationship with the venue, with whoever else you're collaborating with. Check in with them to let them, you know, say thank you. The value of saying thank you to everyone you work with, including, and maybe even most important, your volunteers. Thank them personally. This means so much to people, and it means a lot to you too. You realize that gratitude comes to you as well. And that's how we ended 2019 Tabletop Game Expo, with a lot of excitement and being content and happy, looking forward to the future when we're going to do it again. If you have any questions, other questions about anything, also please put them in the comments section. And follow along on my journey in United Geeks.